Colette Quinn, who is a member of our board but also a parent to the very handsome Harry, to speak about her own journey. And thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm delighted to be here today to talk as a parent, and before I get started though, I'd really like to commend Shine and the Rainbow Club for putting this together today for us as parents, because we often get left out of things, don't we? Because the focus is always on the kids and how they're doing, and we forget ourselves, and within that we forget our wider family as well. So thanks so much to Shine and the Rainbow Club for putting this together. I'd also like to thank Shine for putting together the Autism Aware site that we as parents and those who are dealing with kids who are on the spectrum have a resource that's there 24/7 for us to look at and to get resource and help from. So it's fantastic. I don't know about you, but as a mum who has a child on the spectrum, I'm so sick and tired of all the negativity, and I'm sick and tired of all the negative language used around it. It's disheartening enough at the best of times, dealing with what we're dealing with and coping with what we're coping with. And I'm tired of hearing people saying words like won't, can't, and never will be. I want somebody to start telling me about the things that my child can do and will do and excel at. Okay. That's what I really like about Shine and the Rainbow Club. I like, by their very nature, right, shine, the word shine, brightening futures for kids, and rainbow, it's all about brightness. It's all about telling us that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that things are going to be bright for our children, and that we can dare to dream about our children's future. So, if anything today, let's try and be positive about where we are and where we're going forward, and let's change the negative language that's been used around this whole area, because it's not helping anybody. And for all our sakes, let's just try to be more positive and use proper language around this moving forward. So I've decided to take some words of wisdom and advice from Temple Grandin, and today I'm just going to use some pictures to explain my story, me as a parent. So if I start talking about our story, it starts here with Harry. Harry is now, he's 7 in January, but when he was about 2 years old, we started noticing changes in his behaviour that we couldn't quite understand what was going on. A lot of the time he was falling forward and he started cracking open his head quite a lot. And when we started asking, going to people or the GP asking what was going on, it was like, oh, he's probably just chasing after his older brother. He's just trying to follow him and do what he's doing. Or maybe it's dyspraxia. At the same time, Harry wasn't really talking at all. There was only a couple of words that he was saying every now and again. There was all this other behaviour that was going on that at the time we didn't understand what it was. So things like spinning. He was spinning quite a lot. We now know that that's a marker for autism, but we didn't know anybody who had autism. We knew no families who had a child on the spectrum. So this was all new to us to try and navigate what was going on, or what was happening, or why he was behaving in this way. He was also watching TV and cartoons, or Peppa the Pig, at a particular point. So we would have to rewind it and watch it from a specific point in time, and if we didn't, he was starting to get upset about it. There was all the other social behaviour going on, where he was just happy to play on his own. He didn't really play with toys at all, so recently I donated a whole load of different toys that were there, that were brand new, because he'd never played with toys till he was about 3 or 4. So, a long story short, we spent about 2 years trying to figure out what was going on, what was causing this behaviour, being pulled from Billy to Jack, just like yourselves as parents, because we don't know better really. We're told to go and see this person or talk to that person, and they know the best for us, don't they? They'll tell us what's going on. But we spent 2 years doing it, and at no point in time did anybody mention the word autism to us. And if it was mentioned, they were telling us, well, he probably doesn't have it. Maybe it's dyspraxia, maybe it's this, it's just speech delay. So trying to navigate that whole process was really, really hard. And it's soul destroying a lot of the time. So when people start talking about all this negative language, then it just completely compounds the issue. And you as a parent are doing all the best that you can, trying to hold things together and trying to figure out what's going on so you can seek the supports. So until you have a diagnosis, you're really in the dark. So I know Shine have that social skills app, Klug, the alien that arrives on the planet, and he needs kids to try and explain to him what's going on and to navigate the world. Well, as a parent, I felt exactly the same because I hadn't a clue what was going on, where to go, who to talk to, who to listen to. So it was only for Shine, really, and organisations like Shine that really helped us understand what autism was and what was going on. And then once we knew what that was, then we could actually start putting a plan in place and getting the supports around it. And we all know as parents, when you get that assessments and needs done, it's great. It's like, it's like a fairy tale really reading it, isn't it? It tells you all the things, all the deficiencies that are there, and tells you all the services that you need. But the punchline at the end is, yeah, that's great, but hey, we're not going to give you any of the services or any of the supports. So it is like a fairy tale for us, and that's our reality. And when you mentioned earlier about language and the use of language, and the language you use does define your reality. So as a parent and as people, I know there's SNAs here, I know there's teachers here, so we need to change the language we're using around this, and let's try and be positive about the future and dream about the future for our kids moving forward. So rather than focus today on all the negative stuff that we went through as parents, and I'm sure all of us could write volumes and books about it because at times it is horrendous, I've tried to focus on the things that I've learned as a parent over the last 4 years. So we started the process in 2014, it's now 2018. So it's 4 years on, so I've learned quite a bit, and if people can find some of this useful, great, or they might, see themselves in some of the stuff I'm going to talk about. But it's just about trying to talk about things from a different side and from somebody who experienced autism in a different way than some of the speakers have spoken about this morning. So, so I'm going to do this as 10 things I've learned from being an autism parent. So this could go horribly wrong, so hopefully it won't, so we'll just drive on, okay? So I suppose the first thing is, life's a roller coaster each and every day, and you can feel fantastic one day and feel invincible, and the next day complete and utter failure. If it's a call from the CNO that something isn't after, something's gone wrong, or from the school, or whatever it is, you can feel fantastic and think you're making strides. And as Dolly Parton said, it's one step at a time. And Hugh was saying it earlier, so he was saying over lunch to him, going, yeah, God, I was going to say Dolly one step at a time, and I have to say Hugh one step at a time. But it really is, there are days when you've ups and you've downs, and like some days you just want to stay in bed, just put the duvet over your head and hope it's all going to go away and things get better. So anything, any victory or any win, just absolutely celebrate it and be grateful for it, because we don't know what's going to come at us any day of the week. And people say how you plan your life or plan your next day. We can't, I can't even plan any day that's, you don't know what's going to happen or how your child is going to react to something from 1 hour to the next. Everything could be fine, and then the next thing something could happen and everything is thrown out, right? So it is a roller coaster each and every day. It's relentless. So we just have to drive on as best we can. You mightn't have a clue, but keep going. So what's that saying about when you fall off a cliff and you try and make the airplane as you go down, as you're spiraling down through the air? That's how I feel a lot of the time. A lot of the time, like Luke, I feel as if I'm living in a parallel universe or on a different planet to a lot of the people that I might speak to in my day-to-day interaction with, whether it's schools or preschools or whatever it was. I just felt a lot of the time as if they didn't get it, they don't understand what's going on and what we're dealing with. And we might have a child on the spectrum, but we might also have other kids in the family, so it's not just one child we're talking about. We have to go home and put on a brave face and do everything else for the kids that are at home as well. So, but the one thing I will say about parents is we have to keep going and never ever give up, and never ever give up on your child, and never let somebody tell you that they'll never do anything or won't do this or won't do that. Drive on and fight for them, because at the end of the day, a lot of us, we are their voice. So without us, who are they and where are they going to go? So we just have to be resilient and drive on. And if anything today is about, it's like our health and well-being, we have to mind ourselves and drive on, because we're no good to our kids if we're not. So never ever compare yourself to others, even if they are neurotypical families or families like our own. By virtue of the fact that a child is on the spectrum, they're unique. So therefore, by default, all our families are unique, aren't they? So what I'm dealing with at home is very different to what you're dealing with at home or what your life is about. So I think we should never compare ourselves to somebody else or what they're going through, because you don't know what you're dealing with. It's only you and your partner or your family. So never ever do it. And I was just laughing at this, I had to put this in. So like everybody talking about dance recitals and games and stuff, and it's like, okay, they tried a new food or their socks didn't, were okay today. For me the other day, everything was fine going to school until Harry was saying this to his teachers in the room, and Deirdre. I dropped Ryan off to school and I was in the car going down by the playground, and Harry all of a sudden decided to say, yeah, I'm not going to school today. And I said, okay, what's going on today? I'm not the tallest. And I said, what's going on here? You're not the tallest? And he said, yeah, in school we're talking tall, taller, tallest. I'm not the tallest. I'm not going to school. And I said, what are you then, Harry? I'm taller. Okay, who's the tallest, Harry? Salome. I'm not going to school. So then we had to use, like Alma was saying earlier, this distraction and just change the subject about what was going to happen. But he was perfectly fine going to school, in the car, then on the road back, he just started processing what had happened the day before, and he wasn't happy with what happened the day before because he wasn't the tallest person in the class. So then we'd go home, park the car, get the bike, we'd go to school, and then a friend of his just passed him and went, hi Harry, how are you? I'm fine. Bye Mom, see you later. Everything was fine again. Like, it's just the unpredictability of what goes on day to day. It's really hard to cope with half the time. So I would say just don't ever compare yourself to anybody else going on. Let them go off and run the marathons and do whatever it is they're doing, and just be happy with yourself. I'll be at the finish line, I'll just wave at you, that's fine. But seriously, so just, cut yourself a bit of slack, it's fine. And then, no, we can't. Like, I grew up in a generation where we were told it could be anything and we could do anything we wanted to do. What a load of, rubbish. We can't. Nobody can do it all. No matter who you are, you can't do it all. Like, I'm a martyr for this kind of stuff because I am a control freak, so I find it hard to not do stuff and not be in control. And I think that's the one thing that I've learned along this journey as well, is it's very hard to relinquish control over what happens to your children. And we as parents have absolutely, a lot of the time, no choice on what happens to our kids. We're dictated to where we send them to school, we're dictated to on what kind of supports they get. So that's very hard for somebody to relinquish that control. So it takes its toll on us, so we can't do it all. So please ask for help. And help doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could be just getting a little bit of a break sometime during the day, going off, having a cup of coffee, walk around the block, whatever it is. Ask for help. Because I spent too much of my life not asking for help, and it's not good. You need help and you need support. So today is about us as parents saying, yes, we do need support. Now let's build our little community around one another and help one another. And like everybody was saying today, and Hugh and Pat were talking about as well, we need to mind ourselves. A lot of you probably know the statistic, it's quite a well-known piece of research, that says that we as parents of children on the spectrum are in a constant state of hyperness, right? Called hypervigilance. They did this study around it, so we're constantly like on high dough and constantly wondering what's going to happen. And I always remember when Harry was younger, he used to bolt, so we went anywhere, he'd be gone out the door, whatever it was. And I used to always feel like a member of the Secret Service going in, swooping the restaurant or sweeping wherever we were going to see where the exit points were or where could he escape to. And you feel like a nutshell going around the place. I'm sure other people can go, what's she on, like looking at the exits. But I used to have to do that because if I didn't and I turn, or when you're sitting down for the meal, you kind of go, where is he now? Okay, he's there, so he won't bolt off there. And then the next thing would be you look at the table and go, okay, fine, it was a family get together and they're probably going to have chips and stuff. So where's the ketchup? There's no ketchup on the table. I literally was going, oh my God, like waiting for this stuff to happen. So we're hyper vigilant. We're always thinking about what could go wrong or what's going to happen, right? So we're in this state of hyper vigilance all of the time, right? So we need to mind ourselves and our well-being. I know some people are laughing there, so they obviously can relate to this type of thing. And also, we have the highest amount of marriage breakups amongst any other group of people. So all of this stuff takes its toll on us and our relationships and our wider family. So we have a lot going on, and we need to mind ourselves and mind the people that are in our lives. And one of the leading experts on mindfulness during the week even said, when you look at the prioritization of the people in your lives and you within that, the number one priority is yourself. Then after that, it's your relationships. And then after that, it's your child. Right? I would put child second here. But self. That's why on airplanes, they always say, put the mask on yourself first, because you're no good to anybody else unless you're minding yourself. So we have to mind ourselves, and on top of that, there's a piece of research in the Independent, sorry, I'm a researcher by profession, never guess. So there's a piece of research around us in terms of our financial obligations, and the strain we're under as well in terms of finance with a child on the spectrum. It costs an average household an extra 30 grand a year, you know, because we have to deliver all the services ourselves because we're not getting them. So all of that takes its toll and has an impact on us. So just mind ourselves. And I suppose as well, in those 2 years, the twilight years as I call them, where we spent trying to figure out what was going on, one thing that really resonated was the fact that be mindful of who you're listening to. Who is it that you're getting this advice from? Everybody seems to be an expert in autism nowadays. It's kind of cool, you know, at the moment. It's everywhere. From autism-friendly cities to people doing X, Y, and Z around the whole area. But a lot of these people lack any substance or training in autism. So you need to dig deep and understand who these people are. What experience do they have? How long have they been working in the area? What expertise do they have? Have you spoken to people who've gone to see them? What did those people say about them? Were they good, bad, or indifferent? Because we all know the impact of you exposing your child to somebody who isn't good and knows what they're at, because we had a really bad experience of that fairly early on, and Harry just completely and utterly regressed. Harry was known as Happy Harry in our neighbourhood, and when Harry would hear this person's voice, he would just lie on the ground, bang his head off the ground, bang his fists and his legs on the ground. And I got so upset one day I couldn't actually talk to the particular individual, and she turned around and said, it must be really hard for you at home. And I couldn't talk to her because I was going, I've never seen my child like this. Never ever seen my child like this. So I don't know what you're going on about, because it's the way you're interacting with him. It's your voice, the way you're howling over him, you're shouting into his ears that my child isn't deaf. So I just, honestly, just if you're going, and at the early stages, I know it's really hard because you're gobbling up and you're reading as much as you can, trying to understand this whole area. And it's very easy to get sucked into seeing everybody and anybody. And we did it. We spoke to so many different people over the 2 years. So just be mindful of who it is that you go to talk to and seek advice from, because it could be detrimental to things. And find parents who are at the same stage as you. It's really important. I know Ken's going to be talking later. His kids are older than mine too. But it's really important to stick together with the families that are going through things at the same stage as you. So they're probably in the assessment of needs at the same stage. Their kids are probably starting school, or they're in a unit at the same stage. So you know what they're dealing with and what they're coming to terms with and coping with, just like yourself. So same stage, I found, is very useful and can be really, really good. And I suppose celebrate and shout about the big things. The first photo is Harry actually going to a first birthday party of a friend. Not a family member and not a neighbour's child, a friend. He got an invitation. I have the invitation still stuck in a notebook that I use for work. It's amazing. Look at his little face there, so excited. He was nearly 5 at that stage, going to a first birthday party, right? This was huge. This was in the middle of us being in absolute despair around where he was going to go. We were told there was no placements for him in school. You name it now, there was just horrible stuff going on. And here he was, just look at that photo. He's going to a birthday party, delighted with himself with his little Spider-Man present. It was fantastic. The next photo is him starting school. So he's in mainstream school in the Educate Together in Carrigaline. That was in the local newspaper. Again, something that people told us he probably would never do, go to mainstream school. And then the last photo is with Ryan, his brother Ryan, going to soccer, Carrigaline United. And recently, he actually had a debut in Turner's Cross in between one of the matches. So the early retirement planning is already in process. Delighted. So, but they were things that we, at the time, in the throes of everything, couldn't possibly have dreamt that he'd be doing or enjoying. You know, he's enjoying this. He's kicking a ball after telling us that he had dyspraxia, you know. So go out and celebrate and shout about the little wins, because we don't get enough of them. So when we do, we really need to shout and share about them. Hope I'm doing okay on time. Number 8, please cut yourself some slack. And for God's sake, you know, lean out. Stop leaning in. Like, that sure has an awful lot to answer for. I'm just tired of everybody having this expectation. You need to be doing so much. You need to be doing this, this, and this. And often, I remember talking to Kieran and Shine about this, going, should you be doing this? Should you be doing that? Should you be going to this? And you're saying, often. they just need to be quiet, you know. If they're in school, they're using up all their energy just to concentrate on being in school. They're coming home, they want a bit of me time as well, you know, and relaxing and decompression, and you know, so they don't. It hasn't to be about hecticness all the time and doing, you know, like he was talking about earlier about doing stuff constantly. It doesn't. And say no more. Now, I'm trying to learn this as well as we go along because I'm frightful for getting involved in so many different things. So I need to stop and say no as well, and actually start focusing on doing more for myself and my well-being as well. And just like our kids, we get overwhelmed and overloaded, particularly with, you know, the likes of this stuff and the phone. There's an awful lot of useful forums out there online, and I found them invaluable, but there's an awful lot of them that can be quite toxic and quite negative, and we get sucked into it, and then we end up spending a lot of time then worrying about stuff, and a lot of scaremongering will go on some of those sites as well. So I would say, you know, when you're talking about your free time, guard any free time, and I mean free time, not like an hour, we was talking about earlier, like even if you 5 or 10 minutes in our world would be good. Just do something that you enjoy doing, even if it's making a cup of coffee, sitting down, reading a trashy magazine, going for a walk around the corner, like having a nap even at the time. So it's just about unplugging, because we've an awful lot of stuff that's going on in our heads day to day, let alone all the stuff that we as parents have to confront on a daily basis and deal with on a daily basis. So just unplug from the blue screen, really. And then finally, my parting words are, like, if we focus too much on the disability, like I started the talk out with, all this negative stuff, we need to stop that and to stop talking about disability and start talking about the ability that our children have and the futures that our children have. You know, they said he wouldn't, but he did. They said he couldn't, but he can. They said he won't, but he will. So please, just mind yourselves in the whole process and just think for the future and be positive around it.